Tonight we have several public meetings in regard to our 2013 budget. The purpose of the public meeting and the hearing tonight is for the City Council to take input from the public. This is not a period of City Council discussion, nor is it a question and answer period. There will be other points in tonight's meeting where the City Council will share their thoughts on the 2013 budget, and the public can participate by asking specific questions related to the 2013 budget resolution that will be under consideration this evening. With that in mind, let's begin. I now open the public hearing on the 2013 budget. If anyone has questions or comments, please come forward and give your name and address so Martha can record them.
Steve Schoeninger, 5703 West 53rd Street.
Hi, Steve.
I realize this right now is not the question and answer. I just need one question. If I understood you right, we can ask questions later before the vote on the budget?
We have an open session during that time.
During
you can
that
ask,
time on
absolutely.
the budget?
Right.
Okay. Well, what's this session for then, now?
Well, this is the hearing on the budget. So if you have concerns that you want to raise to address about the budget itself, this would be a good time to do that. And then we'll be able to answer them collectively or one-on-one during the open period.
All right. Well, I don't know who all was at the meeting earlier today, but my concern on this budget is raising taxes 30%. And a lot of that comes with the interceptor down Johnson Drive, which would be very bad for business. The designer said it'd be about a year, so you can figure probably a year and a half then. On businesses, it would be terrible. They're weak now because of the economy. That would probably do them in. There's no flooding on Johnson Drive. It's not a necessity. So that about the interceptor. Oh, I can't ask the question. I'll have to ask the question later.
Well, you can pose it because it's going to be recorded.
My question is when does the state require the budget to be in?
And Mr. Scanlon, you might address that now because that's a global question for the budget hearing.
We have to have a certified budget to the county clerk by August 25th.
That's the state requirement to have a budget, a completed budget?
What they call our budget certificate, which is all of the state budget forms, and then the city council members have to sign the cover sheet.
Okay. I have another question? Or?
Go ahead.
So what if that budget is not presented the 25th?
I would guess we're in violation of state law, and if they don't accept it, then we would have no spending authority in 2013, nor would we have any levy authority. So any fees or mills that we have in our budget wouldn't be able to be collected.
I'm sure you're going worst case scenario, but okay. Well, I have my other questions then. Thank you.
Thank you. It's okay. I'm sorry. No, well, I'm old too, so don't go. That's fine.
Frank Bruce, 5706 Lamar. I just had a comment. I came to the Finance Committee meeting last week, and I was really impressed when I saw that the budget was reduced by $300,000. But during the discussion, it came out, it really was funny money. It was a reduction from a projected budget for the year of 2013 and not a hard number from the year 2012. So just wanted to make sure everybody understood that when you read the paperwork and get impressed like I was that they actually cut $300,000 out of the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Bruce. Anybody else? Public hearing on the 2013 budget process. Okay, we now move on to number 7, which is unfinished business, items 7A through 7E. There were a number of these items that were discussed in committee meetings over the last 2 weeks, but did not receive enough support to be recommended for consideration by the City Council as a whole. There are 5 of those items tonight. One of them relates to the improvement of Johnson Drive, and the other 4 related to adoption of the various elements of the 2013 budget. Mrs. Gibbs will be handling those items that went through the Community Development Committee because she's the chair, and Mr. Shepard will be handling those that went through the Finance Administration Committee as he is the chair. Could we look at 7A, please?
We can, and I hope you all will bear with me. I have a long couple of paragraphs to read. Johnson Drive, Alta Lamar Design Concept Resolution. This is an item that had a tremendous amount of discussion 2 weeks ago, and a whole lot more discussion in the community since our August CDC meeting. In addition to the CDC meeting, there was an Interseptor 101 public meeting tonight that Black and Beach helped put on. Charlie is here, Dick Kaufman, Jeff Hansen. Thank you so much, guys. I thought you did a really, really good job. We appreciate that. Besides questions and discussions on the Interseptor, there was a tremendous amount of discussion around all of the streetscape, hardscape amenities. Over the last week, Justin has come up with a solution, thank you, Justin, to strip out the streetscape, hardscape amenities for a little while longer and still not hold up the design of Johnson Drive. We all need to understand that if we delay the project any further, we risk the loss of $2.8 million in federal funds. Those dollars far exceed the cost of the streetscape, hardscape amenities and would require the city to find additional money in the street program to make up the difference. So here's where we are. We can separate the streetscape, hardscape amenities out for a month, but the Interseptor is key to final design of the street. We need to make the decision on the Interseptor tonight so that Olson can complete the design of the project and get it submitted to KDOT. Otherwise, we're risking $2.8 million in federal funds. Am I on track, Mike?
Correct.
That being the case, Madam President, I want the City Council to know that the staff crafted a new resolution for tonight that excludes previous sections 4 and 5. Removing these sections will delay the discussion and vote on the hardscape, streetscape project elements for 1 month. I also would like to admit that I had the same issue Councilman Andre had with these pieces because I used to own a business on Johnson Drive. So I too have my own vision of Johnson Drive, and it was hard for me to vote on these if you're not sure what you're going to be looking at and how they'll benefit the project. So during the next month, staff will put together some before and after pictures for certain sections of the street so that we will have a full picture and understanding of their impact on the overall project. Justin and Olson, I think you've already started working on that. The staff has also recommended that we have another public meeting similar to the Interseptor 101 meeting we had tonight to gain further comments from the citizens and businesses on Johnson Drive. I fully agree with all this. So therefore, Madam President, I move that the City Council approve the resolution you have before you tonight. A resolution establishing the Johnson Drive design concept for improvements between Knoll Avenue and just west of Lamar Avenue. This resolution excludes previous sections 4 and 5 from the previous resolution and leaves in the construction and funding of the Johnson Drive Interseptor. The new sections 4 and 5 states that all streetscape and hardscape elements included in the project will be directed by a future resolution that will come before the City Council.
Is that in the name of a motion? Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Discussion time.
Right. So is this where the residents can get up and speak?
Oh, we can talk
This
first.
is our dialogue
Okay.
first, please.
Because what we might say might
Right?
mean somebody doesn't need to get up and say anything. Having gone through the process here and taking a look at particularly one of the items to be done as part of this project, which is the Johnson Drive Interseptor, I took a good hard look as to what impact the construction was going to have on the project, on the businesses and property owners. I looked at the cost, which was going to be transferred or raised for a period of 5 years on both the residents as well as the property owners of the city of Mission. And those property owners that own those business buildings down on Johnson Drive, they're just going to transfer those fees to the renters. So it would be an additional fee on top of, or a rent raising for businesses down there. I also looked at what the impact was going to be insofar as what the Interseptor would relieve insofar as the flooding area. And pretty much was informed this evening, not pretty much, but was absolutely informed this evening, that the interceptor being put in would not take any of the properties out of the 100-year floodplain. Having weighed all of the costs and the negative aspects to doing this, I cannot support going forward with the interceptor as part of this project.
Other comments?
Number 3 was always my issue with it because of the increase in ERU for the 7th time. I never supported it, and that was a given from the beginning. So the rest of it, the Johnson Drive, I support it. You know, if you could take out number 3 and not increase the cost of business I wouldn't have had a problem.
Also, in looking at everything that needs to be done and the tearing up of the street and the replacement of the stormwater system with the interceptor, my concern is the huge impact to the businesses, and that we heard tonight that it's at least a year. I don't know if we even accurately got an assessment for moving of the utilities. I would say it's probably 12 to 18 months of significant disruption on Johnson Drive to put in the interceptor and to tear up the entire street. I personally, from research that I've done with excavators, believe that we could redo Johnson Drive with maybe a simple mill and overlay, fix the sidewalks, maybe put in some pretty street lights to create, a common theme down that street with a minimum impact to the businesses and without an increase in the stormwater utility fee. So I personally feel that's a better solution for the city. I also agree with what Will said when we look at how much that doing this interceptor is not removing any property from the floodplain. I just have a hard time supporting it.
Anybody else?
Yeah, the potential liability issues. Another thing we were informed of tonight is that our neighbors, Fairway, are doing a new stormwater study, and they would like us to participate with them. And since we have done all this work, they've had some issues, and they have mentioned potential liability if, and we don't need any more lawsuits in this city. So that it might be something that we step back and take a look at and participate in a neighborly fashion with our neighbors and see if we can't come to some resolutions that don't mention the word liability.
Whatever we determine is appropriate for the city, we will do it with a collective spirit of goodwill and hopefully the right decision, but it will not be based on threat of lawsuit. Thank you.
No, but it is also, stormwater is not a citywide problem. It's a regional problem. And it is something that we do need to be aware of. When you're talking stormwater, you're not talking the city of Mission boundaries. It is something to take into consideration.
Thank you. For historical purposes, just let me clarify and point out that we've had a stormwater committee. Mr. Weber chaired that committee, had people along Johnson Drive that were on that committee, and worked with Fairway during another political process. Some of it is engineering principles and concepts that could vary by position, vary by firm. The political chain of events and processes also changed. And agreement was made at that time based on the persons in political positions and based on the engineering firms at hand that we would do business as we did. So let's just leave it at that, and we'll move forward and try and work with Fairway to the best of our ability. But decisions were made based on past practices and past people, and that can't be changed at this point. We'll just have to look at the future and see if we can get by with working together in a more collaborative manner. So we'll move forward on that. Any more questions?
Are you going to solicit feedback from the audience?
When I'm
I'd like
through
to
here.
hear that before I...
Okay. Do you have any more questions or
I'd
comments?
like to hear from the audience
I
before
would
I make
too.
a comment.
I would too. I wanted to get everybody up here first. Anything else?
I'm just going to say one thing.
Sure.
I understand that the interceptor by itself may not relieve any of the properties in the 100-year floodplain, but I'm also to understand that this interceptor becomes the first phase of a larger plan that ultimately takes those properties out of the floodplain. And if you miss this opportunity in summer of 2013 to take advantage of this, then you are forever saying for the next 50 years or longer, all of those properties will be in the floodplain. So look, I get it that increasing the ERUs on residences and businesses is not an easy thing to do. But this is what I also will tell you is that as I look outward and I say, where is Mission not 2 years from now, but where are we 20 years from now? Are we still relevant? Is our infrastructure sustainable? Is it maintaining where we need to be 30 years out, 40 years out? I think those are the questions we have to wrestle with. And yeah, I think we're all going to endure some pain as it relates to fixing our infrastructure, because you can't go 30, 40 years delaying maintenance and not think that that bill is going to come home. And I think that we have in front of us an opportunity to begin addressing it. And while I agree with you, Will, it doesn't fix it, but it does put us on the path to begin addressing it. And if you miss this opportunity, you are forever saying we're going to leave those businesses in the 100-year floodplain and we're never, ever going to fix it. That's what you're saying if you don't vote for the Interceptor.
Really?
Absolutely.
Forever. So you're saying there's no way we could revisit this 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, when the city and the businesses are in a much better climate economically? We could not come back to this and say,
Based on what I know, Pat, based on how many shots we get at completely redoing Johnson Drive, of course, maybe never is a strong word, but I'm going to say the likelihood of this infrastructure problem or project ever coming back in our laps to reshape our city with the way that we have the opportunity to reshape it and to redo a project of this magnitude, I think is very, very, very slim.
Will you lose $2.8 million too?
So I kind of agree with Pat. Never, I have a hard time with never, ever. So maybe if we decide to fix Johnson Drive a different way right now, be it a lower cost, say, I know I always say this, mill and overlay or something of that nature, Johnson Drive needs to be repaired. The street needs to be repaired. That will only last so many years. It's not going to last forever and ever and ever. So it would seem to me if we choose to fix Johnson Drive in a different way, be it a maybe, I don't know, less long-term, because I still don't understand never ever. It would seem to me that if we just did a simple mill and overlay, then we would be able to move forward in, 10, 20 years and be able to do the Interceptor again at that time. And maybe the experts can help us understand that, maybe the audience, the residents can help us understand what their thoughts. I agree with what's been said is maybe at that time, the economy's better, the businesses are better, and we have more foundation to withstand a significant change, an 18-month change to put in an interceptor such as that, do that kind of work.
But I think we also need to remember that we stand the chance of losing federal funding. and we
$2.8
haven't.
million.
It's just $2.8
But
million.
that's on the street, correct, not on the Interceptor. We didn't get any federal funds for the Interceptor because we didn't have fairway. Sign off on it?
The project that we have submitted for STP, and I'm going to look at Martin and Justin, and for cars, is a reconstruction of Johnson Drive. If you're doing the mill and overlay, $4.3 million we return. There is no outside funding. The moment this becomes a mill and overlay project, we fund it all.
Are you talking street or intersection?
You're talking whatever you do. If it's street and then you do some sidewalk or you do some things that are pretty, it's all.
Monies if we don't do the Interceptor.
The Interceptor doesn't have anything to do with it. It's when you're talking about mill and overlay, understand that there will be no outside money, because that's not the project that we've submitted.
That would come out of our funds, our money.
All of it.
And just to clarify, there's $5.3 million anticipated to come out of our funds already.
Correct.
No, that's not gross. The 5.3 is not gross, that's not net of the local dollars will be. The 5.3 includes the reimbursement.
No.
No, that's state reimbursements above that.
Right.
And there were other options for the interceptor for stormwater.
I think Charlie put it best. As we started looking at stormwater, we probably looked at 20 different options as how you handle stormwater up here on Johnson Drive. And I think Charlie said it best at about 6:05. He says, the interceptor, and I don't know if cost-effective or cost-efficient is the right word, but it's the best way in the long term if you're looking at making stormwater improvements. The interceptor, and I'm going to stop right here because I'm going to let Charlie talk about Charlie, if you can come up and talk about the interceptor, the number of boxes in Rock Creek and how that changes it, and then how it helps us with stormwater to the west, because we're sort of missing sort of the next piece.
Thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure to be in front of council again. Yes, we did this evening discuss the interceptor in more detail, and it is, of all the options that we have looked at for dealing with the flooding, the flows that are coming from the north down to Johnson Drive and making their way to Rock Creek, you intercept those at Johnson Drive and take advantage of the fact you're already anticipating a street project where you're tearing up the street anyway. You get the opportunity to improve the utilities that are in the street, the water line that unfortunately breaks quite a little bit, get that repaired, get the interceptor in there. Because of the slope of Johnson Drive, it is much steeper than Rock Creek itself. One box in Johnson Drive will effectively replace two along Rock Creek. So just purely from an engineering principle, it's much more hydraulically efficient in terms of the cost of the options looked at. For solving the same level of repairs, it is the cost-effective option.
Thanks, Charlie. Any comments since Charlie's made a statement? Would anybody from the audience like to participate by asking questions or giving a comment? Please come forward and give your name and address. You're on.
Steve Schoengert, 5703 West 53rd Street. First off, I think Mr. Shepard is maybe misinformed on this. I'm going to ask Charlie, as being the first step on alleviating the flooding problem. For one thing, there is no flooding problem on the north side of Johnson Drive. I mean, I've talked to all the businesses. There never has been. As far as being the first step, may I ask Charlie Seaver?
Please.
Charlie, being the first step is just a different option, correct, than using the creek as an option?
Well, it is. It essentially is then a parallel backbone to the main conveyance system. So what's anticipated on this project is just that backbone system. The balance of the secondary collection system that is needed to gather that flow and get it into the system isn't being looked at this time, so that's why Mike was accurate in saying the interceptor itself does not alleviate the flooding problem. It is the next phase of improvements.
But I mean, if there is not a flooding problem, it's hard to correct something that's not there.
Well, again, it's a matter of engineering principle to distribute that hypothetical, if you will, 100-year design storm that is dictated by the federal government and what's been adopted by the county and state. You apply that storm in a hydraulic model and you make improvements based on it. Whether or not Michigan has experienced that exact type of flooding event, you have to pick a design standard, and that's what it means.
Thanks, Charlie. I think we're coming into a different era, and that is pay as you go. You know, all these cities around the country are, in financial difficulties. A lot of them are. And I think that's because it's the credit card deal. You just charge. Using the creek as the conveyance of water, which we always have, it's a type of deal you can pay as you go. You can do the creek a little at a time. This conveyance going down Johnson Drive, this interceptor, that's all or nothing. And like I say, it's probably a year and a half on the businesses. It's putting a strain on them. It's putting a strain on, I know you've gotten calls, Debbie, on fixed income people. I mean, I was out there, standing out there when they were addressing you. And I got a point of order too, if you let me remember. So you got people on fixed income that it's very hard for them. I mean, it's taxes and fees keep going up, and I think it's time to pay as you go. I think the savings in the interceptor have not been addressed as far as loss of business. When you take in loss of business, it is saving no money. And we've got now in place 10 grates that run from the north side of Johnson Drive to the south to the creek. You know, I've been there where it's flooded, you know, it's rained 3 inches in a half an hour, and there's no problem. There's no flooding problem on the north side of Johnson Drive. So that I'll have to say, I'll make time for someone else. Just a point of order, I'm sure you've investigated it, or you wouldn't be doing it, but as acting mayor, do you have a vote?
I do.
Yeah.
I investigated it.
I figured you probably did, but I thought I'd bring it up. Just
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, Charlie, for your help.
Robert Hartman, 5140 Halsey, Shawnee, Kansas. I am a business owner here in Mission and property owner. I own Hartman's Hardware. I have a few issues with the Johnson Drive. The main one is the Interceptor project, and another one is I spent some time on the visioning committee. I don't believe council addressed our plan in a proper way. Not enough time was spent on what was put there. And I do realize the amenities have been stripped from this at this time and can be addressed later, but, you know, I'll come back to that meeting when you do get to that point. The Interceptor project, it wasn't there when we started the visioning committee. It kind of came in during that. At that time, I was informed, it was going to be a SMAC project, Stormwater Advisory Council. And there would be money available from the county for building the Interceptor. Well, our friends downstream didn't agree, so it's no longer a SMAC project. So no, we no longer get any assistance with building the Interceptor. It's going to the $5 ERU, which I don't know, what's the size of a ERU in Mission?
Square footage,
Yeah, square footage,
2,600.
2,600. So that, that puts $5 a month on me times 5?
Correct.
Yeah. That adds up quick. My stormwater fee in 2007 or 2008, I believe it was $400. Went to $1,338, and then it went down to $1,200. I need to investigate that, why it was a little more one year. It should have been the same. Then the cost of saving money on this project being the Interceptor, now that was put in before we found out that we're not getting any assistance with this. Now we're paying for the whole thing. Is that correct?
Correct.
Originally, we had SMAC money, and how much was that?
Well,
I missed the meeting earlier, I was working.
SMAC reimbursement is 75/25, depending on the project. It could have been a little less depending on how long or how big we made the Interceptor project, but 75/25 is their reimbursement. 25 city, 75 SMAC.
That would have been quite an additional savings. I think if you factor that in, is it still more cost-effective to put the Interceptor down Johnson Drive than put the water where it wants to go in the first place, down the creek? I've had experience. I was down on Southwest Boulevard for 15 years. Many times that creek came back to where it wanted to be, not where they put it.
question, Dave?
No,
Sorry.
I'll wait to make a comment when you're done, but I do want to ask you about the streetscape, because I know that you were on the visioning committee.
Right.
And when you're done with the interceptor, I would be curious to get your take on.
So we're going to, I guess, discuss the streetscape.
Well, I'll just, you're
Later.
up here, I mean, if it's all
Okay.
right.
I will be at the other meetings. A few other problems with the Johnson Drive plan as it stands. You know, we ask for, well, it's back to the amenities, some crosswalks, which would be nice to get across Johnson Drive. Now they want to take a stoplight out. It's the only safe place we have to cross right now at Woodson. Now, if you remove that stoplight and only replace it with one crosswalk, we're right back to where we're at. So we'll discuss that later also. Then the problem of, back to the tough money. If we lose the tough money, who's paying for the Johnson Drive project? I mean, that's going to be one heck of an increase right up front because we've got a lot of money that's refunded. You know, I've been waiting to see what happens with that case to see if that money's still available. That would be all my comments for tonight. If you wanted a question on the streetscape, I'm glad to answer it.
Well, I was just curious where, because I don't disagree with what you're saying or the letter that we received this week from a real estate owner in the city of Mission with which how we dealt with those amenities. And having served on the committee, I'm just curious your take in terms of the importance of those streetscapes and the recommendations that were made.
I think the important part, well, you know, the amenities are important, but how we're going to pay for them has never been discussed among the business owners. And whether, you know, CIDs are not getting a good rap right now. You know, the assessments on the property owners, I've had some numbers a couple weeks ago when we didn't get to talk, but approximately what that would be per property, and I figured, you know, all my clients' rent, all my tenants' rents would be going up a couple $100. Not everything. There's no way we can get everything. You know, but, you know, a lot of those were put in there. It's like, yeah, this would be nice. We know we're not going to get it, but, you know, put it in there and let's show what can be done on Johnson Drive down the road.
Sure.
But the money part really needs to be talked about a lot further.
No question about it. And I think that one of the things that came out of the meeting that I heard was that every amenity that would be on Johnson Drive wouldn't just benefit the immediate or adjacent property owners, but it would benefit everyone that lives or works or plays in the city of Mission. And so if we're going to have those amenities, we ought to figure out a way to spread that
They
across.
need to be split among the city. I mean, down Knoll to Roland Drive, they got a lot of amenities for, you know, on the taxpayer, not on the businesses. I don't think they paid for any street lights. I think that was a Tiger Grant or something, though.
Combination of
Yeah, combination. The sidewalk that I've never been happy with, that was, I believe, stormwater money. But yeah, that's a big issue. It was why us when it's everybody's benefit, and especially a long strip of property of the city that benefits. Thank you.
Mr. Hartman.
I can't see it.
John Swart, Prize Properties, 11530 Grandview Road, Kansas City. Property owner of the Mission Theater development, Woodson. You guys know where that's at. I am 100% in favor of long-term development. Understand the cost of, or the pain of making costly decisions that require us to make investments for a long-term future. I do feel that I'm not as concerned about the ERUs. Although I own 39,000 square foot of real estate, I understand the need to spend money to gain improvements, and I understand the need to invest in our utilities today for the future. So I'm not overwhelmed by those things. I understand the impact of them, and I'm realistic about that. But when I look at the impact of the interceptor on Johnson Drive and the fact that it's a part, it's not obviously the greatest, because the water line itself is going to take a significant amount of time. But there are other ways of dealing with the interceptor. If I understand the math, there's about a $30 million component for the interceptor, is that correct? And there's about $8 million of real estate being taken out of the floodplain. So we're spending 30 to gain 8, and I understand if we weren't to do the interceptor that we'd spend additional monies to gather water and bring it down to the creek. but I'd love to be able to see whether that's not a better alternative. And I'm not opposed to the floodplain being the creek. I think long-term, if the creek were to be developed as a floodplain and take those properties that are in the floodplain and eventually convert them to green space, we're looking at a gift for the future generations of the city. And so I think the idea of pay-as-you-go is a good concept. But I want to make sure you understand, I'm not opposed to spending money to see a long-term outcome be realized by the city. That's good for all. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Go ahead.
My name is David Miller, and I own Warner Specialty Foods. Volumes can be said about this fiasco. I have been here for 17 years now. When I bought the business, I was ordered by the SBA at the time, where I got the loan, that I needed flood insurance. I went to a company, an hydraulic company called Archer Engineering. Are you familiar with that company? Archer? Obviously, they died, yes. The man determined I was not in a floodplain, and I have not gotten any water in my basement. But I am personal friends with the fellow who owned it prior to 1974, and he never got any water in the basement. To go back and to do this now is just ridiculous. First of all, I can't handle being closed for 18 months or diminished. When I bought the business, I had my wife and somebody else. My wife no longer works there, and I'm semi-retired. I have 5 employees. Now, if I have to pay 26% on top of my water bill, or wastewater, whatever you want to call it, and not have the business, I can't survive in Mission. It's as simple as that. It's economics. And this whole thing is nothing new. When we had the flood in 93 or 98, I forgot when it was, 98 I think, they said, oh, we're going to fix Rock Creek. Rock Creek was done a certain amount and then ceased to be fixed. For some reason, they ran out of this, they ran out of that. Next thing you know, they're busting up the culverts because they ordered the wrong ones and did the wrong things. In the meantime, we chased after plenty like puppies. We put in a new property, we put in new sidewalks, we dug up bricks and put them on pallets. What the hell are bricks at? That was all money spent. This stormwater thing is nothing new. You knew it 10, 15 years ago. 30 years, 40 years now, I don't care what happens, and none of these people in this area care what happens to Mission.
Take care of yourself.
So making that judgment doesn't make any difference. It just doesn't. But I can survive, and a lot of the other people cannot financially survive in Mission. Now, I have been in Mission, or my company has been in Mission since 1974. Prior to that, it was on Westport Road since 1898.
We love having you too.
I can't survive it. I can't survive losing the income and paying for something that was known years ago and the money wasn't saved for it. Stockton, San Bernardino, the rest of them are going bankrupt. Our police force cannot arrest enough people to make up the difference. And they're predatory as they possibly can be. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. McConnell.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
My name is Margaret Lee. I've lived in Mission in the same house for 58 years. I have never seen Mission in the condition it is now. We're getting the horse before the cart isn't going to work. You got the cart before the horse now. You're spending money we do not have, and you're asking the residents to foot the bill with money they do not have because of this economy. Has anybody, I have not yet heard one person give any attention to the 50-some vacant businesses buildings that are in Mission. Now, that's a lot of revenue that's gone down the hill. Why don't we worry about that? If we have to hire somebody to do that for us, to get those buildings filled, then we need to hire them and do it, because the revenue that comes in will pay the bill. It's ridiculous to do it's ludicrous to do all this improvement for nothing. Mission is becoming a ghost town, if you all haven't noticed. You drive down Johnson Drive, it's building after building that is vacant. There's land that is vacant that should be filled. We should be working on that instead of spending money that we do not have. We're going to be bankrupt if we aren't already. And there are cities all across the United States in that condition. But with us, we have a choice. We can either spend money we don't have and run people out of Mission, or we can try to make it attractive and bring it in. And I don't mean by fixing the streets and putting in a sidewalk we do not need, or a fountain down at the mall, which is not there. Look at all that revenue that went out. Nothing's been done for years. I really am ashamed to say I live in Mission. We elected you people to look after our interests and not to charge us more money on the outside when we don't have enough on the inside. So it's $5 a month on the wastewater, $60 a year, $79 for the driveway tax. Now that got people's attention, the driveway tax. Up to that point, I thought you were looking after us, but you're not. You're spending money I don't have, and over 50% of the people in Mission do not have. I think you better look in your own backyard. It's nice if you all have the money to do it. That's fine. But I don't, and I think there's 50% of the people in Mission that are just like me that do not. So why don't we take into consideration filling those businesses, getting people in there that will bring people, more traffic into Mission. People come in here now to spend money that are not going to come. They're going to go somewhere else because they can do 2 or 3 things at once and not pass all the vacant buildings. So, as a last thought, let's do something about the vacant buildings, please.
Thank you.
Oh, and by the way, that was my letter in the paper last Wednesday.
Do that.
I was asked to write that letter, and there'll be another one in next month. I can only do one a month for 200 words, but there'll be another one in next month, so pay attention.
A little more positive myself.
Pardon me?
I hope it's a little more positive myself.
Well, it all depends on you, honey. All depends on you.
Wow, that's a tough act to follow. My name's Joe Wiley. I'm the mayor of Fairway, and I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I heard something that tweaked me a little bit about liability and a threat of a lawsuit, and I want to make it crystal clear to this council and to every resident of Mission, we have no intent whatsoever, and I will never, ever entertain any type of litigation against a fellow city. And what I can't prevent are the individual property owners that may have damages from something that may occur here that can be attributed to a bad decision or something like that may come along. We have a study going right now that we want to take a look at this. I don't have any business, as far as I'm concerned, to interfere with your budgetary process and what you improve and don't improve, and I would not want to throw a monkey wrench in that. What I would recommend, though, is before you break ground, that we use the benefits of this study to collaborate so that you don't make a decision before you start a project that is going to be maybe somewhat tweaked in order to address some of the issues that we're having in Fairway with our flooding concern. We support what you're doing in Mission from a redevelopment standpoint, and the vision for 20 years down the road will be much appreciated, unfortunately not by us here today, but the future generations. And so we support that, and we want to work collaboratively with you. But when I heard the threat of litigation, I want to be crystal clear, it's not coming from Fairway. We've already been through litigation as a community, and it was a philosophical difference that I had with our past administration to think they cannot sit down with their own citizens and their own neighboring communities and have an adult conversation and come to some consensus. We're missing that consensus word all across the country, and it doesn't need to happen here in Northeast Johnson County.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate
Mayor, I
that.
appreciate you doing that and saying that at our meeting here, and hopefully we will work with you guys, work closer, and we're going to be good neighbors.
You already are good neighbors. We just don't want to get sideways on issues that become counterproductive to Northeast Johnson County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
take one more comment, and let's move to the financial side of things.
My name's Sharon Miller. I live at 719 Shiloh Drive in Raymore, Missouri. I have a business at 5812 Johnson Drive. And listening to all these comments about Johnson Drive, it does not need a Band-Aid. It needs to be fixed. It's long since been passed over for a lot of things. There's sinkholes, there's chunks out of the road, and we go along and patch a little bit at a time. That's got to be costing us a lot of money. We need to do Johnson Drive right one time and get it fixed. And I hope that the committees look at all of the amenities we put in to beautify the corridor and make it a proud place to have a business and be. Thank you.
Thank you. One more chance up here for comments.
Yeah, the baseline project on Johnson Drive, I was really impressed with it. It does address the sidewalks, it addresses the streets, it addresses the parking, it addresses trees. I mean, it's not like if you pull anything, if you pull 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 out, it has benches, it has trash cans, it has bike racks. I don't know where people will ride on their bicycles on Johnson Drive when you narrow the streets, but it has bike racks. It has trees, it is pretty. It has beautified Johnson Drive. So that was the baseline for it. It wasn't like it was just a street. And we all agree that Johnson Drive has been long overdue in getting fixed. There were just other priorities, I suppose.
Okay. Last one, Mr. Nichols.
My name is Bill Nichols at 6019 West 61st Street. I want to clarify something. What I think most of these business owners are talking about is walk-in business. Hartman Hardware, Warner's, not so much with Ms. Miller's. She told me that most of her business is wholesale. She does it, that's what she told me. That's what she told me. And she does accept walk-in business. I just want to clarify that. We're talking about walk-in business that's going to get reduced bunches with this project. Thank you.
Thank you.